What's going on YouTube? Young Mustard is back and I am here to do another predictions video, and I'm here to talk about who's going to win the most improved player of the year. Now this award basically is for the late bloomer of the year, the guy who was drafted maybe as a high pick, maybe even as a low pick, and they ended up sprouting a little bit later than expected, or a bit earlier than expected in the case of Jimmy Butler, as he wasn't expected to be that good. So basically this award is for the guy who blossomed late, like I said earlier. So I am going to give 5 candidates for the most improved player of the year. So without further ado, let's get into candidate number 5. Number 5, Rodney Hood. Now personally, I believe Rodney Hood is one of the more underrated players in the NBA, but last season he didn't really show that much improvement because his numbers did actually go down in some areas. He went from 14.5 points in 2016 to just under 13 points. Actually, his free throw percentage as well went down. It went from 86% to 78%. And his field goal percentage went from 42% to just under 41%. So it's pretty obvious that Rodney Hood's, numbers did go down from 2016 to the 2017 season. But the thing about Rodney Hood's 2017 season is that he only played 59 games and only started in 55 of them, and his minutes went down as well, and he got hurt. So I don't think that the 2017 season should be used to judge how he's going to perform in the 2018 season. And also when you consider the fact that in the 2016 season, when he had the ball in his hands a lot more, he averaged just under 15 points, 3 assists, 3 rebounds, shot 86% from the free throw line, 47% in 2-point percentage. His 3-point percentage was 36% and his field goal percentage was 42%. And I think that this year, with the ball in his hands even more due to the fact that Gordon Hayward left Utah and went to Boston, I think that will add to his totals and his per game averages. I could see him averaging about 17 points, maybe about 3, maybe even 2 assists, 4 rebounds, and I think that his field goal percentage will actually go up due to the fact that he was hurt in the 2017 season. I could see him shooting about 43, maybe 44% from the field, 3-point percentage about 36, maybe 35% from 3. I think that he will be really productive, and watch out for him because he is a dark horse on this list to win the most improved player of the year. Number 4, Kristaps Porzingis. Now I know I said that this award is the late bloomer of the year, but let's be honest, there are other times where the player just took a jump in his game, but on most situations it is the late bloomer of the year. But for Kristaps, I think this is where it applies in the different situation. Kristaps Porzingis throughout his whole career has shown that he has potential to be a top 10 player in this league one day in the near future. Throughout his whole career he's averaged 16 points, about 7 rebounds, 1 assist, nearly 2 blocks, and we know his 3-point ability is pretty deadly, as in his rookie year he shot 33% and he upped that to 36% in his sophomore season. So the thing about Kristaps Porzingis that I think he does need to improve is the rebounding, because I do think if you are over 7 feet tall and you're grabbing under 8 rebounds a game, come on bro, come on, you gotta grab at least 8 to 9 rebounds a game. And I think next year he may be even grabbing 10. I can see him grabbing 10 rebounds a game, especially with Melo gone. I think Joakim Noah is gonna probably get less minutes, and I think that Willie Herman Gomez, correct me if I pronounce his name wrong, I understand he's probably going to be starting, and he's a really solid player, don't get me wrong, but I think Kristaps is really going to be the guy that they run their offense through, because I think next year for the Knicks, it's just seeing how good these players that they have are. And I think the one player that they really need to know right now has to be Kristaps Porzingis, and I think that he's going to live up to it. He's going to take the mic and he's going to perform. He's going to be the guy that they run their offense through, and next year I could see him averaging 20 to 21 points, 8-9 rebounds, maybe 10. I'm not going to say 10, but I'm going to go with 9 rebounds, for that certainty. I think 2 to 3 assists, about 2 blocks, maybe a steal, and I can see him shooting about 45 to 46% from the field, because I do think that Kristaps, you do need to up your field goal percentage as well, because when you have big men like Karl-Anthony Towns who's shooting over 50% from the field and he's playing tougher competition in the Western Conference, I mean, come on, bro, you got to be shooting at least 50% from the field. You can't be shooting a point guard's field goal percentage. But I do think that he is going to improve next year, because the Knicks, they have to be running their offense through him. They can't be running their offense through Michael Beasley, okay? They need to know what these players such as Tim Hardaway, Frank Ntilikina, and Kristaps Porzingis can do if they want to use them as centerpieces for the future. So I do think that Kristaps has to be on this list. He's going to take a jump next year. It just depends on how the Knicks use him and if he's ready to take that role. Number 3, DeAngelo Russell. Now personally, when it comes to DeAngelo Russell, I gotta put him on this list simply due to the fact that he's going to a team that it's really all about him. They're not really expecting anything else from anybody else, but they're expecting something from DeAngelo Russell, because when you give away the 27th pick and it ends up being Kyle Kuzma, who has tremendous upside, especially being in LA, I mean, they're kind of looking at you and saying, hey, are you going to be worth Kyle Kuzma? Are you going to be worth the pick that we gave up and Brook Lopez, who was our franchise centerpiece for a hell of a long time? And I think that DeAngelo Russell will rise to the occasion next year and put up some good numbers, but let's never forget that he's on a bad team. So don't overrate the numbers, don't overrate how he performs, because his numbers are going to be severely inflated. Now, we do know that throughout DeAngelo Russell's career, he's been very inefficient. In his rookie year, he shot 41%, and in his sophomore season last year, he shot about 40% from the field, and from 3 he shot about 35% in both years. But I think what's funny is that his 3-point percentage, 35%, isn't bad, but he actually took more threes. He went from about 4.5 threes to 6 3-pointers attempted from his rookie to sophomore year, and he actually made more of them and kept the 3-point percentage the same. And I do commend him because of the fact that he did improve from 3. Now, his turnovers have been at 2.5 to 2.8, but his assists actually went from 3 to nearly 5, so I do give him props there. I think that next year on the Brooklyn Nets, he'll average about 19 to 20 points, maybe 5 assists, about 4 rebounds, and I think that he will get about 1 to 2 steals. But I think his field goal percentage is something that's going to probably stay the same throughout his career. I just don't think he's a very efficient player in general. I don't think it depends on where he goes. I just think he's one of those players that are just very inefficient. It's not like he can't score or he doesn't have different ways of scoring. He's just a very inefficient player because sometimes he takes wrong shots, takes bad shots at times, and I think that's just a part of who he is. So I think his field goal percentage will stay at about 40 to 41%, but if it does go up, I credit that more to the Eastern Conference being weak in the competition that he plays, more than the fact that he's just learned how to shoot better shots and be more efficient. But if it does go up, I expect it to go up by like what, 2-3%, at about 44, maybe even 43% from the field. I don't expect it to go up that much, but I think that DeAngelo Russell will take a step, especially when you consider the fact that his numbers will go up. That's why he is on this list for the most improved players of the year. Number 2, Nikola Jokic. Now, a lot of people last year probably could have argued that Nikola Jokic should have won the most improved player of the year had it not been for a man named Giannis Antetokounmpo. Last year, he averaged about 17 points, a block, a steal, 5 assists, 10 rebounds, shot 83% from the free throw line, 32% from 3, and about 58% from the field. But what's even crazier, even though those numbers are actually really solid for someone in his second year in the league, at the second half of the season last year after the All-Star break, this man actually went off even more, as Mike Malone, who's the coach for the Denver Nuggets, basically moved Jokic to the point guard and allowed him to facilitate the offense. Jokic's numbers actually went up even more, as in the second half of the season he averaged 19 points. He had 6 assists to a less than 3 turnovers. He had 2 assists to 1 turnover ratio, a steal, a block, nearly 12 rebounds instead of the 10 that he had in the whole season average, shot 57% from the field and 31% from 3. it shows that Jokic can ball, especially if he's facilitating an offense. And I think having someone like Paul Millsap, who by the way had a phenomenal playoff series against the Washington Wizards at the age of 32, where he averaged 24 points, nearly 2 steals, a block, 4 assists, 9 rebounds, shot 81% from the free throw line and about 51% from the field. I think having him on the court with him, and they almost made the playoffs. Yes, the Nuggets were about a game or two away from making the playoffs had it not been for Russell Westbrook's dagger 3 in their mouth. Had it not been for that, they would have made the playoffs. And having Paul Millsap there, as well as Jamal Murray, who I expect to take a leap next year after recovering from his injury, I think the Nuggets will be very, very formidable. And I think that will be primarily because of Jokic. He is someone who can facilitate, and I think that next season, I expect him to average about 20 points, 11 rebounds, maybe 10 rebounds, because I do think he will jump to a 20 and 10 guy, because that's basically what he was in the second half of the season. And I think he'll average about 6, maybe even 7 to 8 assists. Maybe that might be a bit of a stretch. I'll just say 6 assists. And then I think his field goal percentage, which is something that is very overlooked in his stat line, he'll be really, really efficient. He's a very efficient scorer. I expect him to average about what? 56 to 57% from the field, 32 to 33% from 3, because he's someone who can do basically everything. Now defensively he's whatever, but offensively we know what he does. He can facilitate an offense probably better than any big man in the league. So shout out to Jokic, because I think next year he will break out and he will be a candidate for the most improved player of the year. Number 1, Victor Oladipo. Now personally, Victor Oladipo has to be one of the most slept on players in the league, especially considering what Victor Oladipo was in his rookie year and how he had all the hype surrounding him. He was arguably the rookie of the year because of the fact that Michael Carter-Williams had a really, really solid rookie year. I mean, it's pretty obvious that Victor Oladipo balled, in my opinion, as in his rookie year he averaged about 14 points, almost 2 steals, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, shot about 42% from the field, 33% from 3. He's a really, really solid player who can basically do everything for your team when you need him. But the thing about him in Orlando that really hurt his progress and development is that they just kept bouncing him around all over the place, as in his second year he ran the point guard position and he actually put up really, really solid numbers, as he averaged 18 points, 2 steals, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, and shot nearly 44% from the field and about 34% from 3. So it's pretty obvious in that season they made him do something that he never should have been doing in the first place. He does not run the point guard position. He is a shooting guard. He is not a point guard, but nonetheless he was actually really, really solid, and that was the highest his points per game average has ever been. But in the next season, which is even crazier, they made him come off the bench. Why would you do that? Why would you make him come off the bench? And even at that, he still put up really, really solid numbers, backing up Evan Fournier, as he averaged 16 points, about 4 assists, 5 rebounds, and shot about 35% from 3 and 44% from the field. And when it comes to the year after that, because he went to Oklahoma City, he basically became a catch and shoot player. Let's just be honest, because we all know Russell Westbrook was trying to get those triple doubles and trying to get those assists in any way, shape, or form, and that shows, as he had a career high in his 3-point attempts in 5.3, and his 3-point percentage actually was the highest that it's ever been at 36%, so I credit Russ with that. But we all know why he was just a catch and shoot player. But even at that, last year he averaged about 16 points, nearly 3 assists, 4 rebounds, shot, like I said before, 36% from 3 and 44% from the field. So I think it's pretty clear to say that Victor Oladipo has never been in a situation to where he can freely be who he is. But I think now, being in Indiana, I think he can freely do that. He's someone who can give you about 20 points per game, maybe even 19 points per game. Maybe I'm overhyping him a bit, but he's someone who can give you that and give you about maybe 4 to 5 assists, 4 rebounds, rebounds, and defensively we all know he can play lock-up defense. And let's just be real, the guy's hops is out of this world. That's that Nigerian blood flowing through him, thank you very much. But I think next year he should be able to average about 20 points, maybe even 21 points, about 5, maybe even 6 rebounds. And I think that 5 assists is actually really doable, because I think him and Miles Turner will be balling. I think a pick and roll will actually be really effective with these two, because I think Miles Turner is an honorable mention for this award as well, but I think Victor Oladipo is going to be the guy facilitating for him for a lot of the points that he gets in the paint, and maybe even sometimes on the perimeter. So I think that Victor Oladipo, his field goal percentage as well, I think that will take a jump. I think he'll finally average about 45, maybe even 46% from the field, especially when you consider how weak this conference is. That's another thing about Victor Oladipo's numbers. I do think his numbers will be inflated just a little bit, so if his numbers are even better than what I'm saying, expect that to be due to the fact that he plays in a weak Eastern Conference. And when you consider the fact, like I said earlier, that he's playing with Miles Turner, I expect him to get a lot of the credit for how great Miles Turner plays next year, because now with Paul George gone, you can run your offense through these two players who are actually really solid core pieces for the future. And I expect Victor Oladipo to finally show what he is made of, because now he doesn't have to do things that are not in his, DNA, that are not in his genetics. He doesn't have to be a point guard and run the point. He doesn't have to just basically be a catch and shoot player and be a 3-and-D guy. He's the type of player that's good at everything. He's just not great at everything. He's not a great scorer. He's not a great rebounder. He's not a great passer, but he's good in all those areas. So that's the guy that I think that people will start to see Victor Oladipo as. And being in an organization such as Indiana, and I understand they don't have Frank Vogel anymore, but I think being in an organization like this to where the players around him are suitable for his talent, I think that is going to show, and I think that he can win the Most Improved Player of the Year next year. Watch out for Victor Oladipo, because I think he's going to have a resurgence, so to speak, in his career and take a jump on not only the numbers but in his game as well.